Good
All right. You two
afternoon.
look beautiful. Love the outfits.
Thank you.
Thank you. We like yours.
It comes with the job.
I love it. I love
I
it.
don't have really. I don't have too many other outfits these days. This is what I wear all the time now.
Walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed, never stressed.
We are here to provide your uplifting news for the day. Now, for our quote. Our quote of the day is: "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new," by Socrates. So, our theme this week, as you already know, is on change and transition. And this quote really appealed to me because I believe that right now we are really experiencing and having to adapt to a new normal in society. And so we have to be innovative and look at the solutions that we can create at this time instead of just focusing on the challenges. So that's what I thought about when I heard that quote. What do you think, Sudan?
I think that we're constantly innovating, we're constantly being creative, especially at this time where we're constantly at home. Remember last week our theme was hobbies, and we
Mm-hmm.
were able to create new hobbies by just being inside the house. So I think that we should constantly build upon ourselves and not just look down on ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. What about you, Sheriff Tony? What do you think?
Well, I tell you, I think it's spot on for me coming on the show today and speaking to you all about the transition from the old to the new. It is exactly what I have been doing for the last 19 months as the first black sheriff in the history of this agency. It's been 105 years, and to where now we finally have a black person who's leading this organization. So you talk about transitioning from the old to the new. There's nothing more significant than that type of movement here in the agency, and then taking those old concepts of policing and the approaches to engage with the community and shifting it into a more modern paradigm of connecting with the community, being more service oriented. The message is spot on. It couldn't have been crafted any better to have me on today and then have that quote be the one we would talk about.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. All right, so our first headline for the day, speaking of being solution oriented, is Drive Through Job Fair, an innovative solution to an unemployment in West Palm Beach. So, right here in our state of Florida, how apropos to talk about this, right? So, I actually really love this idea. Located here in Florida, Express Employment Professionals held a drive through job fair in order to help unemployed individuals find job opportunities. We're doing an interview, kind of quick, a screening interview, and then we're basically trying to figure out what direction to head and have them go onto our website and fill out an application, send their resume, and get them a place, said Cameron Smith. The second drive through will be held on August 6th. And I thought it was so amazing because it was literally like, you know how you would go through a drive through fast food restaurant? Well, you would actually give
Yeah,
in your resume, you get to do an interview, you actually get to, of course, socially distancing, people are in their cars. But how amazing. There have been people who've been able to stop being on their couch for months on end looking for jobs and actually get to go out there and speak with potential employers on the spot. Like, that is incredibly
yeah,
creative.
that's super creative too, especially for the times in which we're dealing with this COVID-19 crisis, and we're trying to keep everyone separated. But there is an impact there. A lot of people are losing jobs, and they're trying to figure out what's the next move. So that drive-through setup gives people an opportunity to do twofold: one, explore new employment opportunities out there, but at the same time keep them from doing a traditional type of interview where they're in a room and now we're wearing masks and we're concerned about the health considerations. So I think we probably should start looking at how we do that here in Broward County and not just West Palm Beach. We should steal the idea and bring it here.
I think that's a great idea. Talk about being solution oriented.
We know that we like to steer away from COVID stories, but we have a positive one this week.
Great.
Exciting study results say that COVID-19 vaccine was effective and well tolerated for its 45 adult participants. It has now been 4 months since the investigational vaccine designed to protect against COVID 19 was tested on humans for the first time in the US. And its recently released trial results are inspiring hope amongst the healthcare community. The interim report of the trials detail The interim report of the trials details how the vaccine mRNA 1273 was not only shown to be well tolerated in healthy adult participants, but it's also promoted neutralizing antibody activity against the novel coronavirus.
Okay, so what do you think about that, Sue?
I'm just happy that people are getting a sigh of relief. I know a lot of people are devastated during this time and going into despair, but there's hope, and we're constantly finding solutions and trying to kind of tell me the word, please.
Well, being able, the thing, I guess what I'm getting from what you're saying, and Sheriff Tony, feel free to also jump in, but this has been going on for months, right? These sort of trials, the testing, everything that's been happening. And so I have to say kudos to those researchers who have been tirelessly working for a solution. They have not given up hope, and so I think neither should I, neither should we. What do you think, Sheriff Tony?
No, and you're right. That's a great update. I constantly get all the different intelligence reports about the status of COVID-19, how it's impacting Broward County, how it's impacting the state, the whole country, and we know that we're going to have to get to a point where we have some form of vaccine that really help mitigate the spread of this virus. So to hear that there's progress, I think it's a tremendous step forward, because this is going to be with us for quite some time in terms of how this virus impacts our community, change the dynamics of how we live. And the sooner we can get some type of vaccine out there, we can get back to somewhat of a normal type of lifestyle. So yeah, we need to push that news out, because it puts a little smile on my face to know we're finally making some good progress there.
Well, we like to see that. We like to see smiles on faces, so that's a good start. Well, everyone, it's Wow Wednesday, and our featured guest of today is Sheriff Gregory Tony of Broward County from the Broward Sheriff Office. So since taking command of the Broward Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Gregory Tony's dynamic leadership has transformed BSO into one of the most... Thunderstorm. Where do you want me to?
And then also put the paper a little lower. So
Okay. All right. Do you want me to start over? Should I start over?
No, you good.
Okay. All right. So we're just gonna go back. Sorry about that. Since taking command of the Broward Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Gregory Tony's dynamic leadership has transformed BSO into one of the most accountable, progressive, and respected public safety agencies in Florida. As Broward County's 17th sheriff and the first African American to serve in this capacity, Sheriff Tony has led efforts to revamp BSO and to restore trust in the agency by implementing progressive initiatives focused on more effective and efficient training, building stronger community relationships, providing youth with expanded opportunities for success, and ensuring all BSO employees are held to the highest standards of professionalism and accountability. Sheriff Tony, it's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me, and you did a pretty good job, getting through that little storm, because I heard it as well. But thanks for the warm intro, talking about some of the things in my background and where we're headed from an organization standpoint. So it's an exciting time. We're 19 months in under my administration. We've done some really cool things here that has never been done in the history of the agency. And it's really helping us just kind of be at the forefront of policing practices, new reform, and making sure that the community is really connected to us. I walked into this organization 19 months ago pretty much by myself. And I didn't bring in 30, 40 people with me. I decided to trust the agency, look at the people who are here, and give them an opportunity to help me lead the organization. And we've had created the most diverse command staff in 105 years. We now look like Broward County. More Black and brown people are in leadership roles. The number 2 in command is the first time in the agency's history where I promoted a female to the position of undersheriff. She is a Black female who's been here for 23 years. Nicole Anderson is our undersheriff, is your undersheriff. And so this is, it's been one of those things where we have made so much history over the last 18 months, showing us that we're going to be a much more progressive organization.
Wonderful. Well, you are over here setting the precedent, and we're going to talk some more about that. But before we get into that, we want to know, how do you uplift others at this time? How are you uplifting others in the community?
Yeah, look, this is a tough time for everyone. There's a lot of difficult decisions that are having to be made out there by our residents. For example, people are facing the employment issue that we already kind of alluded to. They're losing jobs. And when they're losing jobs, they're losing sources of incomes. And now they have to make these calculated decisions as to should they put food on the table or should they pay the bills. And I personally have went through that growing up in Philadelphia, and transitioning here to Florida as a college student. There was times where I was homeless. There was times where I didn't know where the next meal was coming from. And so when I see these things occurring out in our community, I feel obligated to not forget where I've come from and to do the things that we can to help the community. So some of the challenges we've been able to help mitigate is helping people put food on the table. We've partnered with Feeding South Florida. We fed hundreds and hundreds of, not tens of thousands of families. I think we put out over 16 million pounds of food into the community, helping. I've dedicated more money and resources through the Law Enforcement Trust Fund to pay for another 750,000 meals for Broward County. We've done more community engagement. We're out in the community. We're getting out of our cars. We're communicating with the people that we serve. And we're trying to just keep everyone's morale up to let them know we're all fighting this together, and no one's really left on their own to come up with a solution to all these problems that are a byproduct of this virus. And so the more we do that, the more we're interconnected with every facet of the community. I think we'll see, one, we have the ability to help more than most agencies because I have over 5,500 employees. I have roughly $1 billion operating budget. We interact across all 1,300 square miles of this county. And so we have a huge responsibility to do more than just the traditional police services here at BSO.
Love that, love it, love it. How would you define your leadership style?
I'm very engaging. I think I take a hands-on approach. One of the things that's also unique, I believe I'm still the youngest sheriff in the state of Florida. Last year, I was appointed at 40 years of age. I had a birthday not too long ago. I'm 41. And so I am real active in the community. I'm not just stuck here in the office and doing administrative things. I'm out, I'm patrolling, I'm engaging, talking to the community. And for my leadership table, I do more listening than I do talking. For the amount of experience that we have in this leadership role as an administrators, it's imperative that I listen. For example, I told you I promoted everyone from within the agency, and I'll just give you some numbers. So this past year, we've had over 400 promotions in the agency. Of the 400, about 50% have been women. We've never had that. Of the 50% women, 67% of that have been Black women. So, we have all this experience in this agency. For the first time, we're leading the agency with over 500 years of institutional knowledge and experience. So all my colonels, all the majors, all the commanders have been here. So if you're going to lead an organization to this size, it's imperative that you listen to the people who know the agency the best, understands the culture, and can give you some viable options to choose from when you're making decisions.
I could not agree more, especially as a leader. It's so important to not just lead in the front, but also sometimes you have to lead from behind. And you have to be able to hear what they're saying, hear the recommendations, and then you get to make the final choice once you take in all that information. So thank you for sharing.
That's right. Yes. And it's been beneficial.
Absolutely. I can only imagine. And that's really good news that you're sharing with us. So the next question we have is, what initiatives do you have to hold deputy accountable to ensure that they are protecting and serving the community as they should?
Yeah, as we continue to fight through this pandemic, we cannot ignore what just recently occurred in Minneapolis with the murder of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer. And this has constantly fragmented police trust in this country, specifically when it comes to us, to Black people, and how we feel about law enforcement. And I always kind of remind the community that this very uniform that I'm honored to wear comes with a negative connotation and culture to it. There was a time where my parents, during the civil rights movement and my grandparents' movement, where this uniform, someone used it to unleash dogs on us, on our people, unjustly. The fire services, at some point, they would turn their fire hoses on us. And so there's a culture of distrust with black and brown people in law enforcement, which is really just kind of organic. It just happens. It's told story time, generation after generation. And then we see the brutality of a man being killed. But for me, I didn't have to wait to see that horrific event take place to take action. I've shared this openly. When I was 16 years of age, I was George Floyd. In Philadelphia, I had a police officer slam me down on the ground. I had him put, his knee on my neck, and I understood a couple things about what it physically felt like to grasp for air, to hope that someone shows you mercy, to hope someone shows you humility. So it was heartbreaking to see it because it just took me back to when I was 16. But I didn't wait to start changing this agency's culture. We had a culture here that was very lackadaisical, not punitive, didn't do the things to hold people accountable based on policies and civilian expectations. So last year, I started an early warning tracking system to make sure every single one of our deputies, if they did something that was out of context, character, not consistent with policies, and there was a violation, we would track it. Strike one. If they did it again, strike two. But we wouldn't wait until this is like the 17th time that someone had created a problem or identified to be a problem, like we've seen in Minneapolis. That was a huge success, and we're capturing things much quickly. The other side of it is what I created was called a use of force review board. We're now a group of subject matter experts in our organization are analyzing and looking at every single use of force and determining whether or not it should go to internal affairs. Should we remove somebody out of their patrol capacity, so on and so forth. We've never had this in this agency. Then we had a professional standards committee, which has been part of the agency for 30 years, but the culture that existed under my predecessors, I thought was just too lenient. It just wasn't really holding people accountable. We had a case where we had one of the worst school shootings in American history happen here. Deputies failed to perform, and they were only given, a recommendation of suspension. I disagreed with that. I terminated those employees. We had a young black man who was handcuffed in our jail and was brutally beaten by one of our deputies, and I terminated him. And then we had one large, really international case where a young black man did lethal role, 15-year-old teenager in Tamarack. He was slammed into the ground, his face first, for really nothing more than disorderly conduct, which is a misdemeanor. They wrote him a ticket for it. And so I terminated all these employees who were creating problems in his community and dividing the trust. But I also realized that termination, it's retroactive, right? Meaning something bad already happened. Someone's already hurt, harmed, or killed. We don't want to wait for that. So I created a racial equity and implicit bias training mandate for the agency where every deputy will go through the training. I challenged all my counterparts in the entire county, all my other chiefs of police, to do the same. And I invested a total $1 million towards that racial equity and implicit bias training. And I think those things, coupled with sound leadership and being consistent and not changing the guard every 4 years, will allow us to build up a better culture and relationship with the community.
Well, before we go into the next question, because what you just said was extremely powerful, especially I can't hold this in my head where you said that you experienced that at 16 years old, where you experienced a kind of abuse. And so I wanted to know, what is the journey that led from you being slammed on the ground at 16 years old to you now becoming a sheriff? And how did your mindset change? Did you have a shift in terms of how you viewed police after?
Yeah, listen, my journey starts much longer, even much earlier than that. I grew up in the inner cities of Philadelphia in a time where in the 1990s, it was basically a third world country with the level of violence and crime and drugs that was occurring. I had a home invasion, and I had to shoot somebody to protect me and my brother when I was 14. 15 years of age, one of my best friends was shot and killed in front of me for, really nonsense things. And I knew I needed to get out of that community. And the avenue for me was sports. I was always a good athlete. I could run real fast. I can jump with the best of them. I was super strong. I was an all-city baseball player, all-city football player. And I decided that I wasn't going to be a statistic. I was going to die on the streets, and I wasn't going to go to jail. And so I remember graduating after high school. I had a couple of small scholarship offers for local schools, but I just really wanted to get away because it just seemed like it was going to be eventually the community was going to consume me at some point. And so I decided to take a leap of faith. I'm a God-fearing man. I've been a Christian and grew up in a house of religion and faith. So it was easy for me. I said, you know what, God, if you want me to do this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go chase after Florida State University. I want to go there. I want to graduate from there. I want to play football there. And so I saved up enough money. I paid for my first plane ticket. I had never been on an airplane before. I had never left Philadelphia. I worked in a barbershop, sweeping up hair, and saved up enough money to put a deposit down on an apartment that I had never visited in Tallahassee. And then I had roughly $500 in my pocket, and I jumped on a plane with a backpack and a duffel bag, I think just before my 18th birthday, and I left. And I arrived here in January 1998 and took it on and said, I'm going to make it. I made the football team. I played in the national championship for Bobby Bowden, won the ACC championship, and then decided I was going to join law enforcement. That I always knew I wanted to be in law enforcement. And in 2005, I arrived here in Coral Springs, just northwest part of the county. Ran the gauntlet pretty quick, was one of the most decorated police officers during that tenure. That's all that stuff right there. Was the first Black special operations detective in the burglary unit. I was the first Black sergeant and supervisor in the history of the city. I was the first Black field force commander. I was the first Black SWAT operator. Just had been like a trailblazer for that agency, specialized in active shooter preparedness and response protocols, helped develop some policies there that saved a lot of kids at Stoneman Douglas. Then I got the call from the governor on a Monday saying, be in Tallahassee on a Tuesday, bring a suit and a tuxedo, you're going to be interviewed. And before the end of the week, I was appointed the first Black sheriff in 105 years.
That is a journey. Wow. And also, you brought up Florida State, so go Noles. Our parents, they actually met at Florida State.
Right.
That's amazing.
You say your parents met at Florida State?
Yes, they met there. They both went to
Stop!
school.
Wow.
Yes. So my mom, she always says that, when she met my dad, she said that she knew that she wanted to, continue down the science route, and they both did biochem together. And my dad graduated as the first Black biochemist at Florida State. He graduated as the first one. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So I had my majors in the room listening. Now I'm going to show off. Here's my championship rings that we keep here as a reminder.
Oh my God.
From Florida State.
My dad's going to freak out if he saw that.
He loves
football. So, it's good to know we got Seminoles in the family. All right.
Yes, we definitely do.
We want to just say thank you for all the policies that you've put out to save people's lives. I'm lost for words. Thank you so much. You've done so much for people.
Yeah.
You probably don't even know how many people's lives you probably saved with those policies that you met in the last 19 months.
It's been a huge honor to to be given the vision behind it before bad things happen, and then to be given an opportunity to bring it into an agency of this scale, this size, so that we can help the whole community and not just one city, not just Parkland, not just Coral Springs, but, all our students deserve to be able to go to school and know that they're being safeguarded by, the best trained men and women in this organization, regardless of what part of Broward County. It's all one county.
Absolutely.
How are you encouraging and supporting community trust and support at this time?
I think being just really engaged with all the different facets that exist. You know, we've built a lot of different committees and subgroups so that people feel like they're part of the community. So we'll have a multitude of different meetings with our pastors, with our business leaders, with the LGBTQ community, with some of our Black activists, with our Hispanic community. And so we're able to hear have dialogue about all the specific issues that impact those segments of our community. I always say, you know, problems that occur in Weston are not the same in Pompano, and that's to say the same about, you know, the issues of the diverse demographics we have here. You know, I speak to, and even within, to talk about how diverse those demographics are, you know, even within the Black community, it's not a cookie cutter approach to the issues that face Black people. Our Jamaicans deal with things that are a little bit different than our Haitian community, and so on and so forth. And so you have to understand that. And I think that's been beneficial for me and therefore the organization when it comes to inclusion. I think that's the key word is inclusion. We can't police this community without the community helping us police it.
Absolutely. There has to be that co-collaborative relationship, right?
Yes.
You have to be able to work together, and there has to be mutual trust there. Absolutely. Also, just as an aside, we're also Jamaican American. So my mom is Jamaican, my dad's American. So when you brought up Jamaica, I was
We started smiling.
we just started smiling.
I'll tell you, half of my family's Jamaican. My sisters, I have 3 sisters and a brother, and my sisters end up marrying Jamaican men. So I have a whole bunch of nieces and nephews, and this is why I'm very good at reggae and dancing. So.
Oh my goodness! Well, we're gonna have to challenge you to like a dance hall contest or something.
Hey, let's go. I'm in.
After
I'm all in.
We got you. But you know what I will say though, Sheriff Tony, is that you've talked a lot about setting precedents and so many different capacities, being able to introduce these promotions, being able to have these initiatives that you're doing. You've been extremely busy. So, you know, we asked you how you're uplifting others, but now we want to know, how do you stay uplifted yourself? What are you doing in order to maintain a sort of balance?
Well, lately, you know, I had to come into the organization and really put aside my personal time. And I know there's not a level of, that's not healthy for longevity, but it was just necessary. So I had committed a lot of hours to the organization, still do. But one of the balancing things I do take on is the physical fitness side of being able to exercise, take care of myself, my little safe haven. When I want to go downstairs in the office, downstairs we have an awesome gym here. You know, put my headsets in, kind of zone out, hit the reset button. And when I get an opportunity, spend time with my wife, go up to kind of disappear, hit the beaches, and do those type of things, and pray and just continue to pray for strength. These are challenging times. I've never been an elected official. I've never run for office. And quite frankly, it wasn't something I had ever even anticipated myself doing until after accepting this role. But now that I'm in here, I understand the importance of keeping the things that we've done intact. I think the community deserves it. I'm more fearful of the community going backwards versus continuing to move us forward. Because this agency can do more than just manage Broward Sheriff's Office. It can really be kind of a guiding light for where we take this community.
Thank you so much for that. Oh, we wanted to ask you like about your legacy. So what do you envision your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
Man, I think the greatest way to define a legacy is, what do people say when you're not here? What have you done for so many other people that regardless if you're the sheriff or your time comes and the Lord calls you home, people will continue to share your works and what you've done to uplift other people. I don't think it's a medal. I've won all of the medals you could possibly win. And I can tell you, it's not that. The greatest thing I've had happen here that reminds me of the importance of when you are in a position of power, what you can do and how you can influence people's lives forever. I relate it back to there are two deputies here that were students of mine. I've been an adjunct college professor for several years, and two deputies before they were ever BSO deputies were students of mine in a criminal justice course, and I have told them that they could do anything that they want, so they put their minds to it. I mentored them on the things that were going to be important to be a public servant, and I've gotten emails from them, and they're like, "Hey, Sheriff, you probably don't remember me, but 6 years ago I was a student of yours," and they can quote me on things that I said in the classroom to this day. I think that's the type of legacy that's worth living a life for. You know, how do you impact other people? What type of change can you introduce where it just keeps rolling itself over and over and over and over? And I always talk to my command staff about this, is that there's things that we are doing right now that will not just impact the next 4 years, but it will impact the next 100 years. In 100 years from now, perhaps no one ever even hears of Greg Tony, Sheriff Tony, but something that we did in 2020 is going to impact someone's grandkids, perhaps your grandkids. That's powerful. That's the legacy in my mind.
Absolutely. Talking about legacy, being able to give back and pay it forward, and then it just perpetuates. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
How can Broward County residents and leaders contact you?
Well, there's a couple ways you can, dial into our non-emergency line, or, in this world of iPhones, you can go into our sheriff.org website, examine, all the different facets of our agency's point of contacts, whether it be straight to me. There's an email set up there called Ask the Sheriff. You can send direct comments to me. If you really want to engage and look at all the tremendous work we've done over the last 18 months, go to sheriff.org/Sheriff Tony. And it's our Sheriff Tony initiatives, as we call it. There's an entire dedicated web page that has a multitude of our videos, major projects that we've launched and pushed forward, our command staff, where we are headed over the next, 3-4 year planning process, and some of the big projects that we launched last year alone just to help this community. So, reach out to us. Also, I'm on Instagram. It is me. A lot of people they're like, "Is it really you, or is it some?" No, it's me, BSO Sheriff Tony. I am on Instagram. I can't respond to the thousands of messages I get rapidly, but I do respond at some point. So those are some platforms to reach out to us.
Oh, that's wonderful. We love the fact that you are not only... Oh, go ahead.
I expect to have two more followers.
Oh my goodness.
Today.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe I'll have a new follower today. We'll have to figure that out.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do it. But what I love is I love how approachable you are and how you are welcoming the community to be able to engage with not just the office, but also with you. Just being able to have that connection is important. It just allows us to feel as though, we're being supported. So the question we have for you is, how can Broward County residents and leaders be able to support what you're doing at this time?
I think we are in a turning point very shortly. This is a political season. My name is literally on the ballot, probably in your homes right now for some of you who are doing vote by mail, or you will be coming into the ballots and placing the vote for me on August 18th. And I honestly think that if you are truly going to engage and support this organization, then it's going to be important that you educate yourself about who are you going to choose to be your sheriff in this county, because this role here is impacting roughly 2 million people in this county, and it can't be taken lightly. We can't ignore the progress that we're making and go back to broken tendencies of the past. And so I think civic engagement, having the ability to exercise your ability to vote for people that you believe in, vote for people that are doing the right thing, that has always made the difference in this country. In any reform or any progress, or even when we regress, depending on who we put in office, will determine whether or not this agency continues to move forward And on a personal note, it will always dictate on whether or not Black people have an opportunity to be successful in this country.
Absolutely. We have the right to vote, and if you are able to, I'm always sharing that. It doesn't matter which side you are on, at the end of the day, you have to vote. It's a responsibility that we have, and so we have to keep that in mind. So thank you for doing that. I just want to thank you so much for sharing what you just did, and I want to also just include that I was recently appointed by Mayor Messam to be a part of his Public Safety Council, and so I just want to let you know that this is just being able to speak with you today especially is amazing, and I want to hear even more about some of the curriculum that you've put in place to see ways in which we can be able to talk some more about that and continue the dialogue in terms of bias training and implicit bias training, as well as the importance of diversity. So thank you for sharing that. I want to say that I'm doing my due diligence as a community stakeholder to be able to stay active. Even if we're doing it virtually, we're still staying active. And so we just want to thank you again.
That's right. Okay. Yes, and look, send me a message on Instagram. I'll put you in contact with my captains in the Department of Community Services. We have a social justice task force that we're developing, and I'd love to have you both participate in it.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. One thing I wanted to add before I have Sudan, I don't want to talk all the time. Sudan is my co-host. I want her to give the closing remarks. But what I want to say is that it's important to have inclusion and diversity, and to not just have, I remember someone actually likened it to diversity is being, told that there's a party. Inclusion is being asked to dance, right? So you're actually getting a seat at the table. And that being said, as a Miss Florida local title holder, I was able to have an initiative with some of my other Miss Florida candidates where we actually showed solidarity in support of the message that the Miss Florida organization, or the Miss America organization, just put out in the last month or so, talking about the need to, uphold the acceptance, inclusion, diversity, and also getting rid of discrimination, being anti-discriminatory, but focusing on the fact that we have these common characteristics regardless of our previous perspectives or backgrounds. We all should be treated with respect and equality. And so it's so important to bring that up and realize that there are different ways in which we can be able to contribute to the change and transition, as we're talking about this theme this week, that is happening around us.
Thank you so much, Sheriff, for joining us today. And I promise I will follow you right when I charge my phone. It's dead now. But I promise you got 2 new followers.
Exactly. Thank you again, Sheriff Tony. Is there anything you want to share with us?
No, it's been a pleasure talking to you both. And I already know we're going to be chatting all up on social media and meet up some more. So I look forward to actually at some point being able to have you in the room and sit down and talk about ideas and get to know each other some more. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.